are some elements in that riff that I just played for you that just give it that wicked and evil vibe, and I want to share those with you as we go through this. So I'm going to break this down for you note for note. We're going to jump right into this, but real quick guys, if you are a Patreon supporter, you have the backing tracks, both backing tracks and the tabs, so that's out there. Make sure you grab those. Number two, make sure you hang around after the lesson because we're going to have our usual guitar chat. So there are 4 parts to this evil death metal riff that you're about to learn here, and we're going to go over these step by step. Now, parts 1 and 3 are the same thing, so we'll just go over that part one time. We're going to start with that, and then we'll go over part 2 and then part 4. Okay, so part 1, this might actually be the most challenging part of this riff here. It's based on the alternate picking, and then we're also going to be playing some notes across 3 different strings here, and that can be a challenge sometimes, alternate picking, going from one string to the next like we're about to do. So let me just play it out here by itself. I'll go through it at like what we consider normal speed here, which I believe the BPM's like 183 or something like that. Then I'll play it slow, and then we'll break this down, okay? Kind of hard to play slow there, and those hammer-on pull-offs, there's a little caveat to that, okay? And we'll talk about that in a second here, but let's go over the notes real quick. So again, I'm in standard tuning here, as you guys, most of you guys know, but we are going to start out with that open E string, and we go right into this alternate picking. And I know this is going to sound weird, but try not to count. I believe I'm alternate picking each note 4 times, but I honestly don't count. What I like for you to do is just hear the riff. And if you need to back up to where we played it in the full mix there, just to hear that, or go to the beginning of the video where I played it in the full mix, you know, feel free to listen to that. And I want you to be able to just hear it, and then you play and match that, okay, rather than like 1, 2, 3, 4 and trying to do that, because then you start overthinking. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that helps you. So what we're doing is alternate picking that open note, then we're gonna go now real quick, just listen to that. Now I'll call out the frets here, but listen to how evil this sounds. Kind of Black Sabbath-y, right? Anyway, so we're starting on the open note there, the open string rather. Then we're going to go 6, 5. So we're only going from one fret to another, so that kind of simplifies things. We're going to take that same concept and move it to the A string, but we're going to move up a fret, okay? So that's kind of the pattern here. So it's going to be E string, 6, 5, A string, we're on 8, 6. I'm sorry, 7, 6. I hope I didn't confuse it. I can't count. So this, 6, 5, then 7, 6. Then we go over to the D string, one more fret up. See if I get it right this time. 8, 7, okay? So again, the pattern here, there's like a little kind of a weird twisted pattern here, but we're just moving everything up one fret when we get to that next string. So the way I like to break riffs down, guys, is like forget about the alternate picking right now. Just play that little pattern. Open. That sounds cool. It's just, again, it's just got that wicked evil sound to it, kind of like a horror theme, right? Now we want to add in the alternate picking, and again, I believe I'm picking each note about 4 times there, but I want you to listen to what I'm doing. Don't necessarily count. So I'm going to go through this without the hammer-ons and pull-offs that we do at the end. I'll get to that. We're going to get to that, okay? But just focus on this part here, the alternate picking and that pattern, right? Now we get to the end of this little part here, and I'm doing a hammer on and pull off. So let me just kind of play through this real quick. Okay, real quick, let me back up. So when I'm doing the alternate picking there, it kind of sounds like I'm palm muting, but I'm sort of palm muting, but not really. I'm doing a very light palm mute. It's not a full-on palm mute, in other words. And that sort of gives you some clarity between the notes, but it's just a very light touch on there, okay? It's not like a full off, like no palm mute, but just a light touch there, okay? So I just kind of wanted to go over that real quick. That's just how you get that really cool sound, kind of that in-between sound. But again, it helps keep the notes from ringing over as you go to different frets, if that makes sense, okay? Hammer on pull off. Simple concept here, guys. I'm going to be on the D string and the A string, and we're going to be going 7, 8, 7, 0. Same thing on the A string. Okay, just practice that real quick. Again, D string and A string, D string, 7, 8, 7, 0. A string, same thing, 7, 8, 7, 0. The caveat, okay, and then we'll move on to the next part of this. Listen to this. I'll just be honest with you guys, and I wrote this riff, so I guess I can do whatever I want with it, right? But I find myself sometimes not doing the full hammer on pull off before I go to the next note. And listening to the full mix there, I'm like, okay, I didn't play that so smoothly. I don't want to tell you don't play it smoothly. That should be the goal. What I will say is when you're playing heavy metal, especially if you're on stage or just jamming, you know, if you kind of mess up, sometimes that can be okay. I'm not saying don't strive for perfection. I think we should, but sometimes you can play it a little off and it still sounds good, okay? And I think this is where the art of metal riffs and music in general, I think that's where this kind of comes to play. You might play it a little differently each time, but you're sticking to the concept, right? You're sticking to the same concept, and the concept here is that hammer on pull off. But again, I may not play it quite exactly the same. Like if I were to make this a song, which hey, I might make it one someday. I just wrote this riff for this video, right? But you know, you would probably see me on stage playing it slightly different each time. And again, I don't want to make excuses for not striving for that perfection. We should strive for that, but also know that we are humans and we do kind of fall off sometimes, right? We kind of slide out of perfection at times, and I want to say that don't beat yourself up over that. Be okay with that. Keep continuing to strive for that, but if you play it a little differently that next time, that's okay. If it still sounds good, if you're playing the right notes, you're not playing anything that's like way out of key. All right, enough of that. Let's move on to the next part of this cool, evil death metal riff. I don't want to say this part is easier, but we're not really doing a whole lot of fancy stuff here. We're just playing some chunky power chords. Now we do have an alternate picking strategy in here, but we're also palm muting and playing some downstrokes and playing some full power chords on almost all of this piece right here. So let me just play it out in the open without the mix here, okay? Kind of a really cool Metallica-ish feel to that, you know. It's just real chunky. It's kind of like a Master of Puppets album style riff, if you will. But this is kind of a fun riff to play, and everything is kind of up here on, you know, in the same area of the fretboard. That makes things a little bit easier when you think of it like that. Okay, we're not all over the place here. And what's cool is there's a nice contrast from we were playing these, you know, these single note patterns down here, now we have this contrast of going to this heavier section or lower section of the fretboard and sticking to that area before we repeat what we just did, right? So I like to throw that out there because when you're writing music, think about some of the contrasts. Like, you don't want to have the entire song or the entire album you don't want the whole song played up here the entire time. That will get old and kind of boring, even if you change it up a little bit. And I'm not saying there are not great metal songs that have that. There are, but I just want to challenge all of us to kind of step outside of that and play in some different areas on the fretboard, which is why we have that other piece that we just learned. Here, we're just playing some power chords essentially, right? So let's go over this first part. We're going to go to the E power chord, to an F, then to a B flat. That's the pattern. Now let's apply the picking strategy. Man, it almost sounds like of Wolf and Man, Metallica's Black Album. I knew I heard some Metallica in there somewhere. I really wasn't thinking about that when I wrote this, but now that I'm playing it out here with you guys, it kind of sounds like that a little bit. Anyway, so we're going to that E, F, E, then B flat. The picking strategy is where we're starting out with a downstroke, and then we're going to do like a quick dun dun dun, that quick, 1, 2, 3 alternate pick, what we call gallops. Just one gallop in there. Okay? Downstroke, gallop. And I start the gallop with a downstroke. So downstroke, then down, up, down. Okay? Downstroke, down, up, down. Okay? Real quick, another little piece that you might miss here is in between those power chords, the F and the B flat there, I am picking that when palm muting that open E. Listen real close and just kind of watch me real close. You hear that real quick, one downstroke palm muted open E string before we go to each of those chords. It's kind of like a little filler there in between to connect those chords together, okay? One more time. Now the next piece to this is pretty simple. We've got some power chords just kind of jumbled in like a little chromatic way here, so this is it. And I'm pretty much palm muting the entire power chord and playing those. Again, it's kind of a little chromatic sequence here. So we've got the E power chord. We're going to go to F sharp, G, F sharp, back to E, then F. With the palm mutes. All right, now let's put all of that together. Now let's move on to the final part of this evil death metal riff. And this is the final part of this riff here, guys. And remember, part 1 is essentially part 3. We just learned part 2, and then now we're learning part 4, the final part. What we're doing here is very similar to what we just did, okay? There's a little change up towards the end here, and it's more based around, instead of playing the power chords, those chunky power chords that we kind of ended the last part of that riff with, we're going to end with some single note riffs, a single note pattern here, okay? And there's another really cool gallop that you'll get out of that part. So we'll go over that. Let me play it out in the open here, just with, you know, just guitar, no mix, no full mix here. This is it right here. Okay, again, very similar to the last riff. We kind of started out the same way. We've got that E power chord, downstroke, then the gallop. Okay, so downstroke, then down, up, down, real quick. So just like this. Okay, now this time we're going to go to the A flat power chord here. This is part of what makes this riff kind of evil sounding. We've got those chords that we're playing, like the A flat, the B flat, how we did the first part of this riff, you know, with those notes that just went up one fret. So we're playing notes that that essentially aren't really part of a particular key or that key that we're in, because all of this is probably in the key of E minor, but we're all over the place. And this is the cool thing about a lot of death metal and even a lot of the black metal as well, is you've got all these just notes all over the place that give it that really wicked and evil sound, because it's almost like it just doesn't belong, but it sounds cool belonging, because we make it belong, right? Anyway, this last part here, after we play that that A flat power chord, okay, so the notes, we're on the A and the E string, so let's call out the notes first, okay? The frets that we're going to be playing are going to be A string, 6, 5, 4, then we're going to go to E string and play 5 and 4, okay? So here's the pattern. And again, really wicked sound, and kind of like almost like a chromatic thing going here as well. So let's go over the picking part to this. Listen to this. Everything's downstrokes except for that one part that we start out with, is that gallop again. I love these gallops. So, and by the way, I've got another video on galloping if you guys want to. If you guys haven't seen that yet, definitely watch that after you watch this. But what I'm doing is I'm 1, 2, 3. That's all the gallop is, just that 1, 2, 3 alternate pick. And essentially what happens here is we're on the A string, 6th fret. And then we're gonna alternate pick. As we alternate pick, again, 3 times, those first 2 times will be on that 6th fret, and that 3rd and final time will be on the 5th fret. So another recommendation, and we kind of talked about this earlier, don't overthink this, guys. Don't try to sit there and like, well, I don't know, like, is it twice on this note or twice on that note? Just close your eyes and do it. Okay, don't overthink this, guys. When you overthink, it'll be very frustrating, trust me. So just, you know, just do it, right? Just jump in and keep doing it. You will eventually get it. Now you might accidentally alternate pick the 6th fret 1 time and that 5th fret 2 times. Hey, if that sounds cool, do it. But where you really come into play is that quickness of matching your alternate picking and the quickness of these 2 frets, right? It's almost, as soon as you start alternate picking, just pick this 3 times. Okay, do that, right? You're on the 6th fret. Up, down, I'm sorry, down, up, down, alternate picking. Now, as soon as you start to pick, just move to that next fret. Okay, then add the other notes. All right, let's move through that entire part there, okay? This is the last part. Alright guys, it is time for our guitar chat, and I've got one more thing I want you to hear. I'll save that for the very end of the video. That'll be the outro. But real quick, if you do not have my free metal guitar practice guide, grab that. There's a link in the description of this video. If you've already got that, then be sure to check out my course, Metal Riff Master. I know a lot of you watching this already have that, but if you haven't seen that yet, definitely check that out and see how that can help you. Also, reminder to my Patreon supporters, you guys have the tabs and backing tracks. If you'd like to learn more about what I offer on Patreon, there's also a link to that in the description of this video. So hang out in that description after you watch this. There's a lot of good stuff in there for you. There are a couple of different methods that we really dove deeper into in this lesson here, and it kind of just it's just streamlined with this style of music. Now, of course, I know there are multiple subgenres of death metal, multiple subgenres of metal in general. I get that. I tend to favor the melodic death metal when it comes to death metal style music, and this probably was more along the lines of maybe some classic thrash metal meets some classic death and black metal, because of the notes that we played, the series of notes that we threw in there, especially when that first and third riff that we learned. But I say that to say this: when you learn a style like this, when you start playing a style, especially death metal, right, you're playing some notes that normally wouldn't fit in, or seemingly don't fit in that key that you're in. But we don't force it to fit, but it just kind of naturally flows because of the style of music we're playing. And it just sounds beautiful to me. It's like, wow, if you were trying to do that with another genre, maybe it wouldn't sound good. Like if you're throwing notes that didn't fit in that key in, let's say, I don't know, country music, somebody would be like, that there boy, I think he's messing up. He don't know how to play guitar. But when we're playing death metal, it just makes this masterpiece, in my opinion. So I think it's cool to learn riffs like this, even if death metal's not your primary style. It's actually not my primary style. I kind of favor classic thrash metal meets 80s hair bands, meets bands like Nightwish, and I do like some of the melodic death metal again, like Arch Enemy and Monomarth. So and I love Satriani. So all of those types of styles kind of naturally come out when I play. And like you, our style sort of evolves as we grow as a musician. Before I heard bands like Nightwish, and that's just one of my favorite bands. When I first heard them, and I just dug real deep into them, then I started getting into some other European metals. Then I started getting into some other European metal bands like Nightwish. Once started listening to Arch Enemy, to Epica, to Monomarth, and Evergrey, Sonata Arctica. I noticed that my guitar style started to morph just a little bit. I still kind of have my foundation, but it started to kind of really branch out. So again, learning a style like this death metal riff here, I think it can really help your playing branch out because you're doing some different things. Now, the alternate picking, I want to talk about that just for a second here. We'll wrap things up here because I've got something else I want you to hear as we end the video. It's going to be pretty cool. Alternate picking, in any sense, is just a really awesome technique to practice, especially when playing rhythms. And I'm not talking about just metal rhythms. I'm talking about rhythms in general. Now, I know when you're playing fast guitar solos, you're going to alternate pick. But rhythm guitar playing, something a little different, So when you can pull off the alternate picking like that, and this lesson will help you do that, well, that really helps beef up your skills. I'm kind of hungry. And of course, we're alternate picking some single note riffs across multiple strings. I purposely did that in this lesson because I want you to get used to that. So we're not just alternate picking on one string there, we're going across multiple strings using that method there. So again, I kind of wanted to point these things out and just have you practice these. One last thing on this riff. Guys, add to the riff. Add your own flavor to it. That might mean you add more notes. It might mean you add by taking away some notes. Make it your own. This is what I strongly encourage you guys to do because I want you to develop your own personal style of playing. I even want you to develop the own tone that you like, okay? Don't always be chasing someone else's style or tone, this or that and the other. Develop your own, and this is one of the ways that you can work on that, right? Take what I'm showing you here, and then once you get it down, expand on it. And you'll notice as you start to do that, before you know it, you have created an entirely different riff based off what you learned in this video. So that kind of stuff excites me for you guys. So, run with it, take it and run with it. All right, guys, so I'm gonna play this same riff again, but I'm gonna grab a different guitar. This guitar, by the way, is tuned to D standard. Let's hear what this riff sounds like in D standard. Guys, thank you so much for watching my video. After you hear this riff, again, check out the links in the description of this video. Got a lot of cool stuff in there for you, and keep it metal.